Hello and welcome everyone. We are going over today some goal setting best practices. Of course, with it being early January, we're releasing this content. These things are of course top of mind. Most of our clients are not super interested, say maybe in things like New Year's resolutions, but we all do have goals, right? And I do think the beginning of the year can be a convenient time to reflect upon the previous year, what things went well, what didn't go well, and kind of what our intention is, for the next year. It can be a convenient time to do that self-audit. So today's video should be about 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to be talking about, in our opinion, the best practices and best ways to think about goal setting for, of course, health and fitness. So let's dive into that today. So first slide here, we're going to be discussing some differences between outcome goals, process goals, and then also just the general purpose of why we're choosing to do these things week in and week out. And I think to set the stage here, the way I think about the differences between an outcome goal, like I want to lose 20 pounds, a process goal, like I want to track my food 7 days a week, and then obviously a purpose, why do I want to lose that weight, say that 20 pounds? I think this graphic here can be a useful way to think about that. You start with the outcome. What is the objective, measurable goal that you want? You ultimately then decide why, the purpose of that goal, but then we actually start with a daily process, right? Because just having the goal of losing 20 pounds, of course, does much of nothing. And this is where I think a lot of people do get in trouble around New Year's resolutions, is they make some quick outcome-based goal, but they don't, however, put too much consideration to the purpose of the goal, what it's going to give them, or the daily processes, how the goal is actually going to be accomplished. So I think looking at the combination of all of these things can be a helpful way to frame it. It's not that one thing is better than the other. It's that they really kind of force feed into one another. And hopefully this graphic starts to visualize that. You start with the outcome, but then you kind of backtrack a bit to what's the daily practice. And ultimately that's going to lead you to the outcome we're looking for and the overall purpose of why we're prioritizing any of these things. So now let's look into the outcome-based goal. How can we start here and think about some outcomes we want to achieve, whether it be annually, maybe in a quarter, whatever, right? 1 year is just a convenient loop to think about these things. So of course, here are some common outcome-based goals one could have. Maybe lose 25 pounds. Maybe they want to back squat 200 pounds for 5 reps. Maybe they want to increase their HDL cholesterol by 10 points. And you can make a huge laundry list of these outcome-based goals. I think a outcome-based goal, from a heuristic standpoint, useful to be thinking of this as a compass. We want to be going in this direction. But of course, you don't want to think of, what if I only lose 24 pounds? I didn't reach my outcome. Is that a failure? Of course not, right? So again, backtracking a bit here, if our daily processes are getting us in the direction of the outcome, even if we miss the goal by 5 pounds or by, we only increase our HDL by 9 points or whatever, we likely will still drive the purpose and the why behind that goal in the first place. So I do think outcome goals can be helpful because they drive clarity. And typically when we have a clarity and a vision on something, you'll just perform better. But we don't want to become absolutist as well, where if we don't reach this tangible number, we discredit the goal altogether. Okay, and moving now to, of course, the process-oriented goals. Of course, just examples here, but you'll get the idea. Maybe if your goal was to lose those 25 pounds, you want to track your food and aim for a certain calorie number. You want to lift weights 3 days a week. You want to average 8,000 steps a day. Again, just examples here. You're really thinking of this as your daily practices. These will be the things you accomplish on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday. This is what you're really focused on as an experience day to day that will ultimately lead to that outcome, which will lead to your purpose, right? And these are the things we really should, again, be focused on more day to day than just, do I want to lose 25 pounds? Because of course, having that goal doesn't really get us anywhere. And lastly here, the purpose is what it sounds like. What do these daily practices, you accomplish that, you do all these things to the T, you reach your outcome goal, you lose those 25 pounds. What did that do for you? Why do you ultimately care about accomplishing that outcome-based goal? And we have to have this in mind, in my opinion, because without this introspection, we're kind of just running towards something where we don't really know where it's going. And then most importantly, when things get hard, if we don't have a purpose or ultimately why we care about these things that are measurable, if we don't know why that's where we want to go, it's really easy. We have a divergent path of taking the easy route or the hard route. Just take the easy route, to skip a workout, to go eat fast food, to stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning. Because without a purpose, what's the point of losing 25 pounds? You don't really know why you, underneath the surface, want to accomplish that thing. Okay, and to review here again, we think about the outcome-based goal as the guiding direction we want to head. The process-based goal, meaning the things we're going to be doing day in and day out to accomplish that. And then broadly speaking, why we want to accomplish those things. And again, combined, we can start to think of all of these things as a way to create clarity, right? I'm going to day in and day out, track my food and aim for X number of calories so that I can lose 25 pounds. And by losing 25 pounds, I'm going to improve my self-confidence and fit into my clothes better. That is a clear goal that has a process, an outcome, and a purpose. And when you combine all of those things, that's where you become really kind of anti-fragile in the sense of, you know where you're going, you know how to accomplish it, and you're going to have some level of measure of that success along the way. All right, let's dig a little bit deeper here now. We'll talk about systems versus goals. And another way you can frame this is the journey versus the destination. All right. So through this page here, my point is, once the outcome goal is set, which I do think is helpful, 25 pounds, back squat, whatever number, etc. Once we have that, bam, set that outcome, then we need to obsess over the systems or the daily practices and no longer the goal. Because again, trying this back squat 315, trying to go from 200 pounds to 175 is a great start, but now we have to focus on how we accomplish that. So we need to be obsessed with the systems and the habits we create day in and day out to accomplish that goal. All right. So just some examples here. In the habit, in the system of meal prepping every Sunday, a system of going on a walk every single morning, a system of putting your workouts in your calendar so nothing else is going to come up. Hey, from 12 to 1:30, I'm working out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. A system of having a pre-workout snack every day before those workouts. A system of I'm going to read for half an hour before bed to increase my sleep quality. And similar to the other, process-oriented goals, this could be 100 different things, and obviously it will vary from each person. The goal isn't to take these systems. The goal is to think about these systems that will ultimately drive those outcome goals almost by themselves, right? Because again, without the systems, we end up just kind of having these goals and things we say to ourselves, but ultimately our day-to-day life isn't going in that direction. So we have to obsess over the systems. And this is obviously where the coaching comes into play in the sense of how we set up these systems to tackle the step count we want, the workouts we want, the calorie deficit that we want to accomplish our outcome goal. And going back to this slide here, where we talk about systems versus goals and then journey versus destination, I also think this can be impactful is because when we focus on the system, this allows us to focus on the journey, right? This really is, if our goal is to lose 25 pounds, and I think all of these systems would probably help someone do that in some capacity, this is your actual experience day to day. Going from 200 pounds to 175, and the day you step on that scale, even if you reach your outcome goal, it's 1% of the experience. So when it comes to our attention to detail, You don't want to be thinking about like, I don't weigh 175 yet. I don't weigh 175 yet. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong, right? Because even if you accomplish that goal, now the 6 months it took you to accomplish that, 5 months and 3 weeks of it, you were just miserable and waiting for the outcome to come, right? And if we're being honest, if every step of the journey feels a little bit depressing and defeating, your likelihood to sustain that is also just lower probability we're going to be able to do it, right? So we want to always be focused on the journey a lot more than where we're going to arrive, right? Because again, even if we arrive at our destination and things are grand, it's a very small piece of your experience within health and fitness. So that kind of goes to this idea of having these goals of getting stronger, getting leaner, improving your blood markers, whatever, doesn't need to drive an unhappiness or a discontentment with where we currently are. We sort of can live in this environment here where there's a yin and yang between our self-acceptance of where we are now, but also my desire to improve for the future. I think a lot of people get the wrong idea that you have to be somewhat dissatisfied with where you are now to have growth, right? But I think these things actually can work in congruence with one another, meaning you have some self-confidence, some self-acceptance, you lose those first 2 pounds, it gives you some excitement to continue to improve. So these things really can coexist together a lot more than I think some people believe. And I think for a lot of times we talked about last year in our goal setting video, it's a loop. When you have some level of success, some level of self-improvement, this improves your self-acceptance, which just encourages you to do that self-improvement again, right? So they force feed another quite a bit. Now, I jumped ahead a little bit, so let me go back here, right? We talk about the importance of systems once again. Another important point here is that when you have these systems in place, this will lead to much longer sustainability of these behaviors. Because oftentimes, like we talked about early on, the outcome goals will change over time. But the systems that we did to accomplish those outcome goals can very easily be pivoted. So if we go back again to we focus on the habits, we focus on the systems day in and day out. Let's say that person uses some systems like this to lose those 25 pounds, maybe a body composition, body fat percentage driven goal. How easy is it now if they want to say go run a half marathon or do a CrossFit competition the next 6 months and maybe maintain that 175 within reason? Now they have a system in place where they can just tweak some stuff, tweak some priorities, but mostly that's intact already. So now that the outcome goal, if we go back here, maybe they have a new outcome, they accomplished this thing, they had a purpose, and they now say copy and paste this to a different page. The process has already kind of been set in stone. Maybe they tweak 10 or 20% of this, and they just kind of change their outcome and change their trajectory once again. So again, that's why it's so important to not feel like you're rushing to the destination, but be focused on the journey here. Because even again, if all this stuff goes right, we want two things to occur. We want to enjoy the journey because it's 99% of the process of reaching the goal. And then number two, being system focused will increase your likelihood to either sustain that, right? You're sustaining that purpose driven kind of idea you originally had. Or if you move on to a new goal, you're setting yourself up for success. You're probably, again, already 80, 90% of the way there from a behavior modification standpoint, okay? And the last thing I want to kind of drive home in this idea between being system and habit driven. I'm not saying outcome goals are bad. I'm just saying that it should be set the outcome goal. I want to compete at the CrossFit Games. I want to do XYZ, whatever. That's there, but you don't need to obsess about it anymore. You need to obsess about the daily practices once that goal is there. Once we have that vision and the purpose, that's cool. Now we're in the trenches because that's almost all of what it is. Even if you compete at the CrossFit Games, it's 4 or 5 days, right? And it may take you years to accomplish that, right? And that's with any goal, of course, right? And I heard this quote. I don't know where I got this, so I'm obviously parroting someone, but I love it. I think it hits home on that idea as well between setting goals but not being dissatisfied because we're not there yet. So to think about this, and I'll end the video here. We want to measure the gain, not the gap. So when it comes down to that idea, if we go back here to someone who's trying to lose 25 pounds in 2024, what we want to do is obsess over the process and not be depressed that we're not at the outcome yet. If it's on month 2 and you've lost 11 pounds, you should celebrate the gain you've had. I've lost 11 pounds by doing these processes, and the purpose is getting closer and closer. I am happier, I am more self-confident, etc. We don't want to think, oh man, I still have 14 pounds left to go. Because again, then you're too focused on the outcome. You're not focused on the process and ultimately the purpose of what these things are giving you. So I love this quote as an end to kind of our goal setting video for the year. Measure the gain, not the gap. And this can be applied to any goal. It kind of goes back to this idea when we combine measure the gain, not the gap with this sort of yin and yang idea, it does become a little bit self-fulfilling when you're focused on, I'm proud that I gained 10 pounds on my squat this month. I'm proud that I showed up for my run every single Saturday. And we're celebrating those things. That will feed into more self-acceptance, which will feed into a higher probability we continue on with these behaviors. So that's all I have for the video. Of course, any questions, any comments, we will be posting this live or for everyone on our YouTube channel as well. Like most things we do, really designed more for our clients. So if you have any questions, make sure to hit them in the YouTube comments. Obviously, if you're a client, you'll be sent this as well for some just goal setting intentions for 2024. And of course, with myself and our other individual coaches, we'll be discussing this stuff in more detail with you. Hopefully, it's kind of gives us a good baseline of some good goal setting practices for the year. All right. Thank you.